Aha! I am on the internet again. Well, um, I will be doing some Foundry walling tonight. We have a session tomorrow, and I have some walls to put up on some of these maps. So I have told my players to not watch tonight, but I hope they listen. We shall see. And if so, I guess, I mean, they're just maps, I guess. So let's see if this works. Aha! Looks like it's working. Cool. Okay. So I started uh, putting my walls in, and then I realized I probably should be streaming this. So um, here, let me back up a second and explain what I'm doing. So here in Foundry, we it's very easy to create a map or a scene, right? By coming in here, creating a scene, clicking the new scene button, and then um, going and finding your map that you want to use. In this case, I'm using these wonderful watery cavern maps from Mapso. You can find them on Patreon by searching up Mapso if you'd like. Um, I've converted them to the WebP format already to make it easier to send to my players, because keep in mind that anything that you show on screen for your players when they log into Foundry, they are going to have to download all of these assets to view them on their screen. So you want these to be as small as possible. So while you do lose a little bit um, uh, in the compression, you use a little bit of resolution, not resolution, but quality. It's never worth it to keep it. So anyway, you select one of these images and adds in here. Now what's important in making sure that everything lines up correctly the way that the map maker wants it to is by knowing how big these files are. Sometimes it'll tell you, right? They'll tell you 100 pixels per square or 140 pixels per square. Foundry generally likes things at 100 pixels per square. So if you go under the grid, this grid size will default to 100 pixels per square. And that's generally what you want to shoot for if you're making your own maps to just make things easier. But in this case, if I go and I look at these watery cavern files themselves, right? And if I go and I count the squares in the gridded, I'll see that these are 30 squares by 30 squares by 30 squares, right? And if I go one further and then I look at the resolution of the file itself, I know that the resolution is 6,000 pixels by 6,000 pixels. So taking that step again and just taking 6,000 pixels square divided by 30 squares, it'll tell me that each square is 200 pixels, right? So each square on here, if I were to bump up the grid a little bit so you can see it more clearly, we'll know that each square is supposed to be 200 pixels. And so that's what I put in here. I put in 200 pixels per square. This is square. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff if you wanted to. But in this case, my scene dimensions, 6,000 by 6,000, grid size 200, and I'm not doing anything crazy. And I'll eventually go into distance and stuff when I'm messing with world maps or something. But for now, this one's very straightforward. Under lighting, we're going to make sure that we have our token vision turned on, because we want the tokens themselves to be limiting their vision based on what they can see. Okay, we want to leave fog exploration on because we don't want to, show everything all at once. And the other one here is a global illumination that we want to make sure is turned off. So our players have to bring their own light. We're going to add some lights in here to show where there are some lights, but outside of when they're near those, we want them to be bringing their own. So we're going to turn off global illumination. Um, that's those are the easy ones. There are some other things like wall height. I do have some mods for levels, and I'm not going to be doing any of that tonight. But those are just the basics for getting these things going. So we're gonna hit save, and in this case, you can see that I added some walls here, but not exactly where the wall starts, right? And to show you why I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my dudes. And we're going to pick a good old Johnny 5. This is our airship captain. And if I click on this airship captain dude, right? I don't have any light in here, right? He sees nothing. Okay? And that's what's supposed to be, unless he has some sort of vision. If I go in here, does he have um night vision? I thought he did. I guess he doesn't. Maybe I should be giving him some senses here. We're gonna give him 60 feet of dark vision because I think that's um, what these guys get. Sort of submit that, and so now if I click on him, no, it still doesn't do it. Okay, so let's put some light in here. Lighting, draw a light source. We're just gonna drag. If you click and drag, you can make a big light source, a little light source. We're just gonna put that right there. If you hold, I think it's what, control? Or is it alt? One of these. Nope, shift. Eventually I'll find one. There's one where you can, yep, shift, where you can put it wherever you want so it doesn't snap to the grid, right? And so now, if I click on him, you can see that that light is providing light for Johnny 5 to see. And if I were to move him, I can use my arrow keys and move him around, right? All right, he's can only see where that light is showing. And you can see that if I go back to my walls are limiting that light. Okay? Now, I want the players and anybody in here, I want them to be able to see, if I click on him, I want them to be able to see this cool art where it ends where the wall starts. Like I want them to see that, right? But right now, the way that the walls are, if I go and I walk up to it, it lets Mr. Johnny walk into the wall, right? You can see there. So I'm actually going to do 2 levels of walls here. I'm not going to do just one. So if I click back out of here and I go back into walls, right now I just have the standard walls up. The basic walls, they block vision. You can see here, block movement, vision, and hearing, right? I'm going to do another one called invisible walls, okay? Which just blocks movement, right? It doesn't block sight, it doesn't block anything else, and then I can go through this again. We'll just start one right here. We'll hold control because control will let me make a train of these, right? And then I can put these invisible walls around the bottom here where the wall starts, where I don't want them to be walking. And if I go around here, all the way around, this these up a little bit. Let's do this. Okay. So now if I make these invisible walls around the edges here, it allows them to see where where the walls are, but it doesn't allow their tokens to walk over it, right? So we're just gonna stop that there so we can show you what's going on here. So if I click back over to my Johnny 5, right, my view is still limited, right, by the walls that I put here on the edge. But if I go and I try to walk through that wall, right, I can't walk into that wall anymore. I'm stopped because that wall is there, that invisible wall is there. So it gives them um, the visibility of where the walls are, uh, while still also blocking it any further. Right, and you have to be careful around secret rooms and stuff if you're putting them in your maps, in how you wall them so they can't necessarily see through them, um, or they can figure out, I guess, where they can be. So you just have to be careful. But we're going to finish up with our normal walls here, and then we're going to go through again and do the invisible walls in the interior, and then we'll go and put some light sources in and figure this the rest of this out. So let's finish my basic walls. Just going to keep going. So this can be a little tedious, depending on how complex your maps are and how many you want to do. I use a lot of uh, maps that are pre-walled, so I don't have to do this a lot. I'm not sure if uh, Mapso does pre-made walls. He might. I'm a Patreon of his, but or I subscribe to his Patreon, whatever. But I don't have the highest one for him. So maybe on one of his higher ones he has walls already pre-made. And if he does, I might end up subscribing to that because my time as a DM is certainly worth um, the few extra dollars, right? Like if I could pay someone, you know, $3 to map or to wall all these for me, I would absolutely do it because it's $3, right? Or however much extra his thing is going to be. For the amount of time that you save having to do this. And normally, when people do that, they'll do light sources, they'll do all the fancy walls that I'm doing like this. Um, and it'll be for, you know, all the maps that they have usually. Now, I mean, full disclosure, I actually do some of the virtual tabletop conversions for Arcane Minis for their monthly releases for both their standard um, monthly adventures and also for their Big Bad Evil Guy releases where they do a monthly BBEG. You know, if you need um, some inspiration for bad guys or even just henchmen or certain mini bosses or whatever. Their new big BBEG releases go into depth on creating some of those guys, and each one comes with a few of these maps for their layers, and it comes with a bunch of text on how to use them, and it's really cool. This month's release is Sahagin? Sahagin? I don't even know how to pronounce that. The underwater dudes. There's a Sahagin boss, and that's what this month is. Last month was a was it like a flying air elemental sort of person. We had a mind flayer. We had um, a dragon. We had a and the first month was a beholder. So we're only a few months in, but they're very cool. I like them. Now I'm going, pretty detailed on these edges. Like you don't have to be. You can be very like, you know, very really wide or long on these and not have to put so many details in there. I don't know why it matters to me so much. It probably doesn't. Your players aren't going to be like, hey, you didn't spend as much time detailing these as I thought you would. They're going to be more focused on, not dying to whatever you put in here, or um, you know, engrossed in the creepy vibes, or whatever you're doing for this place. But I like to go all out, whether I'm doing this for, a patron or a whatever Patreon, or if I'm doing this for myself, I like to do it so that it looks nice either way. But outside of the big bad evil guy work, I also do their monthly releases for their adventures. So every month they put out an adventure which takes place in their setting called Sordain, and um, every month we get a small adventure. It's usually a few pages. Each each adventure, I say few, but it's like 33 pages or something for the PDFs, and they have usually a few chapters of um, for the adventure with a bunch of role playing tips and creatures and items and bad guys, and um, there's always an airship because Sordain is a very airship heavy um, setting where the whole world kind of revolves around flying. So there's a lot of flying creatures. There's a lot of flying um, magic, and everybody's got something to make sure that they don't fall to their deaths um, if they fall off an airship. So um, each of their adventures has an airship included, and um, all the maps are walled and lighted by myself and my partner in crime, um, whose name is Kanda. Okay, so this now is the outside. Do I have anything? Oh, I have these guys to do. Okay. Um, I'm still working on my filling dead air. When I'm doing my sessions, it's simple because you just talk about what's going on, and if the players aren't talking, then you can fill in with whatever you had planned, or wherever situation your players have gotten themselves into. You can just fill that. But if it's just me, I got to talk about what I'm doing and make this so it's not super boring at the same time, which is definitely a skill that I feel like not many people have, and maybe I'm not the best kind of streamer for this, but I feel like a lot of people want to get into Foundry and other the same sort of stuff that you learn here can be applied in almost any of the virtual tabletops. that use walls at least. Roll 20 or I mean that's the big one. Anyway, so let's see. We have our outside walls all done. So if I were to let's go into Johnny here and give him his own little effect. So we're gonna add an effect here, and we're gonna say lantern. Oh, actually, I don't even need to do this. I'm doing this the hard way. I'm doing this the hard way because we can go and we can find a torch. So we have under items SRD, we should have a torch in here. Torch, cool. And we'll go drag that onto Johnny. And now on his inventory, we have a torch. And if I were to equip the torch, he should have. Nope. Why doesn't he have the light? Why doesn't Mr. Johnny have the light? Because it's not here. Because the SRD torches don't actually have the light thing set up. So let's go and grab it. I think I have a different default DDB items. There we go. Let's do this torch instead. Drag and drop. And now, if I equip, I can click this button too. So I can right click and go to equip, right? Or you can click on this little button here that'll also equip it. There we go. Cool. So now Mr. Johnny's got his torch equipped. So if I were to walk around, right, I can see my handiwork, right? And as he walks around, you know, I haven't done my inner walls yet, so he's blocked there, but everything looks very pretty, right? If I were to go swimming, I can see all this cool stuff that I walled up, right? Looks pretty good. I probably want to make that a little cleaner there because that's the edge of the map. Oh no, I walked out. Let's get back into here. And if we take this, let's drag this a little to the edge there. Maybe that'll make that look a little cleaner. Okay, so, oh, now let's go to our invisible walls and let's finish walling off where we don't want them to be able to walk. So that's ultimately what this is, right? The first ones that we did were what we didn't want them to be able to see. But now this is where we don't want them to walk. So we can be very, like I said, very granular about how we do this, right? Or if you just want kind of the large ones done, right? You can be very long in your selections, right? Oh, but I've messed up here. So see, this is a kind of a lower part of the cavern, and I think this thing is a kind of a higher part of the cavern. We probably don't want to be doing that. So let's remove some of those. And let's bring this up this way instead. So as long as I hold control while I'm clicking around, it'll do that. It'll allow me to chain them, right? If I'm not holding control and I hit my right click, it'll take away my last one and leave that. Um, you can always select and hit delete on these things too. Um, the colors are usually assigned by what settings you have on each wall, and we'll get into those here in a moment. But like each wall section has very specific settings for how you want it um, to block sight or movement or senses or whatever. You can right click drag. You know, right click and drag will get rid of or will pan it left or right or whatever. You can also move your mouse to the top and the bottom. It'll usually move things around while you're moving things if you don't want to start your chain over again. So this looks like this right here. I'm going to take this all the way up to all the way up here because it looks kind of um, like platform level, I guess. They wanted to move up here. I'm going to let them. Oop, shoot. So this is a walkway here, and I want them to be able to walk in there if they want to. So we're not going to completely wall that off here. Um, I guess we'll bring that. We'll start another one here. We'll just bring it around here. Like I said, it usually doesn't matter all that much. I don't think your players are going to be sitting here trying to find the boundaries of where their token can walk or not. It's kind of just in general uh, giving them boundaries to get an idea. Oops, I did it again. We want to bring this in here. And you can make these walls at certain heights. So um, with the mods that I have installed, which is levels and wall heights, you can give them different heights for the elevation in the map, so that your tokens, if they are at certain levels, it won't block their vision. For instance, right? They'll be able to essentially see the um, over the wall if their token is at a specific elevation. Now, that's usually too micromanagey for me. Oh, look at this. I did it again because I'm talking and not paying attention. So this little walkway right here is not one that I want to block. I want to allow them to be walking through this. So let's just make sure that this is connected there. And this comes down here. There we go. And we'll bring this one all the way back so they can walk all the way back there if they wanted. Then works. So, I mean, this is kind of the most time-consuming part uh, of walling something or of doing the maps for your session. It's certainly not required. I mean, I guess that depends on your table, but for my players, um, I think they can generally be um, relied upon to sort of put themselves into the scene. And even though, like, maybe they, the player, can see more than what. Oops, I'm messing these things up now. Maybe they, the player, can see more than their character, but they can um, they can role play that, obviously, that they can't see that. And if they don't know, then they don't know. If you have a very metagamey sort of table where they can't really separate that, right, then maybe you have to do this. I feel like that sort of game is hard to have fun in if you have to physically force your players to not see um, metagame stuff. But each table is different. And if we weren't doing caves, this would be much faster, I think. The problem with caves are uh, this double layer, right? To allow them to see the walls but not walk through the walls. And if you just wanted to do this inner layer where the blue is, right, and um, leave the yellow not there, right, then your light sources would bleed through each of these, right? But if you did just the yellow and not the blue, then they could move into the walls, which is probably the lesser of the two evils, I think, if you're going to be doing um, light and such. Oh, I did it. I did it again. We're going to bring these walls. Um, Man, there's always a million ways to map up the same map. Um, depending on everything. There's a lot of right ways to do it, and not a lot of wrong ways. So do whatever you feel, um, whatever feels right at the time. Like this rock here, like I could wall that off as a something you can't step on, but I don't know, maybe that one kind of looks like something you can step up on and get up onto this ledge for, right? But then like this rock doesn't really serve a purpose, so I'll wall that one off. But it really, whatever you feel like fits um, your game, your DMing style. Um, 'Cause that's really all that matters. Every table is so different, and from what I've experienced in my 3 years that I've been doing this is that my players who play in some other tables, right? Their DMs are way different than me, and they do tons of things drastically different, and their games are just very different, and it's all okay as long as we're all having fun. That's really all that matters. And for me, that's the most important, right? Is making sure that we're having fun playing pretend, because that's really all this is, right? We're just playing pretend with rules to make sure that all of our pretend is um, lines up and is not more overpowered than other people's pretend. Um, anyway, let's bring this guy all the way back to here. Now, I don't know where I'm going to be bringing these caverns yet. This is what I was going to be working on tonight, was trying to figure out how their choices here for this cave system was going to take them, right? Um, like, where do these water things go? If they were to go, oh, hey, I'm going to uh, go down the river, this underground river, right? Where do we go from there? I kind of want to make sure I at least think about what's going to happen there. But if you spend all day trying to cover everything that your party can possibly do, you are not omnipotent, and you will be here preparing for months. Trying to compare or trying to prepare for all the different things that you could possibly think to happen, just to have them show up and surprise you and do something different. So, um, if you figure out the big things, you can usually figure out the small things in session. Yeah. Like I hope none of them are watching. I told them not to, but I have a general idea about what's going on down here and where they're gonna go, or um, what they're trying to do. Right? Generally, as DMs, you kind of have an idea about what they're trying to do. If you don't have any idea what they're doing, I would certainly just ask them. Right? I've been known to ask my players, "Hey, I don't really know what you guys are doing. I want to make sure that I have, stuff prepared for next week, so it doesn't feel like I'm just making shit up as we go along. Um, I don't, because I mean, improv can be great, depending on what it is, but for like story stuff and important places, people, things, I want to make sure that I put some thought um into certain things so that we it feels cohesive and connects to backstories and um all that. Anyway, I don't know how long I've been doing this. Almost 40 minutes. Oh my gosh, that is a long time. Like I said, this is the most time consuming part of preparing maps, which is why I usually don't mind paying for the higher level Patreons that do this for me. So they'll, the Patreon content creator, right, will pay someone like me to spend some time doing this so that, every DM that uses their content don't have to do this. And um, like I said, it's worth it for me. You can decide if it's worth it for you. Because while it's not complicated, it does take some time. I say it's not complicated, but it can be really complicated. You can make some crazy maps. And Bailey Wiki, I don't know if you guys know who Bailey Wiki is, but he's got a lot of videos on how to make some really crazy maps, and um, he uses a lot of mods uh, to make his maps. Essentially, it feels like a tiny video game sometimes on what you can do between triggering doors and triggering sounds and all the levels and the wall heights and um, just anyway, lots of crazy stuff. So if you want to check out him, he's got some really cool stuff too. Like I said, maybe I'm a bad content creator pitching you guys over to other other streamers, but he's got some really cool stuff. This up here. looks good. Okay, almost there. So what's nice about um, doing these walls for a map that has lots of different versions. So like this map, for instance, has um, what like 8 or 9 different versions that was included in the monthly release, and these walls will work for each of them, right? So I could go into my scenes and pull up the abandoned prison caves and just change the image, the background image, to one of the other ones, and all of these walls will stay here, right? So I could like duplicate this guy and do abandoned prison caves clean, right? Which removes all of the lights and the boxes and whatever have you, or change to the green one and be like, ooh, these are, you know, um, underground, poison caves or whatever have you, while not having to re-wall them over and over again. So I'm looking now. This looks pretty good. Oh, this whole section right here. So I'll probably spend um, been an hour, I guess, doing this, looking at the time that I've spent already, getting this map all done up. Now, if that time is worth it to you, to make this kind of a cohesive feeling map, then absolutely, spend the time and take care of it. But if you don't, if you don't feel like it's worth it, and you have good players that can, limit their metagaming while knowing more about the map, then just throw the map up, right? Throw the map up with global illumination and put some tokens on, and then who cares about what they say they can see and what they can't see? I really like this, right? Because I certainly went overboard with how um, accurate I was with all the lines here. So now let's go ahead and click into my dude, right? And we can see, oh, you can walk into that one. What happened there? Oh, it's the grid. So the grid, uh, if I zoom in, you can see the grid lines here, right? So I can go down into this grid even though it's partly walled off because the top part isn't walled off, right? But I can't go to the right because there's a wall right here that's preventing him. So, um, but like I'm sure there's walls right here, but I can still walk through here because um, the grids are mostly open right there. So something to keep in mind. Um, you should probably always make sure that they have, if they're using, arrow keys to walk at least, that you have enough open area to walk through something if you want them to be able to do that. So this looks good. Um, they can see there is a light source. They can see Yeah, it looks good. Okay, cool. So now let's go back over to our walls. And we're gonna start putting some lights in. So sorry, not walls. We want lighting, right? So there are some transitions. So if you have day and night, you can change the light so that they switch from day to night. Here in the caves, we're just going to be having some static light sources, um, so we don't have to mess with any of that. But we're going to add a few different lights here. One is this light here at the beginning, where we have. Let's move this so you can see like this campfire stove here. There's a lantern here, and some man-made lantern or some man-made light sources we're going to be pushing or putting down here, right? So that when they're near there, um, it it'll light up. And so once again, this will snap to the grid, um, unless you hold like a shift. So if you click it and you hold shift, it'll let you put it wherever you want. So that's a pretty big light source. I think that's okay, lighting up that area. Um, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, Control C, and then we're going to this guy over here, the same size of light, and then this one's a bit smaller, so we're going to leave our light clicked here, and if I click and I drag this, I'm going to leave this one a little bit smaller, so it kind of just illuminates this area there. And same thing with this guy. I'm going to click and just illuminate a little bit there. Make sure that this is centered on where I want. So now I've got some lights, and then we still have we have these bioluminescent fungus here. You can decide not to light them up, and you can just have them, you know, teal mushrooms or whatever. But I think each of them need to be lit up. So we're gonna put one light. Oops. We're gonna make it again. So each light, they're gonna be small. So I don't want them to be like lighting up all of their stuff. So we're gonna make them little. We're gonna make them like that. Maybe a little bigger. So that's 3 feet. Let's put this 5 feet and uh, loop right 2 feet. Right, and now I can copy and paste and just kind of drag these wherever I want so that they feel like there's a bunch of little light sources. And like I said, this is definitely going overboard in this case. You probably don't need to do this. Because then what I'm going to do after I place all these is change all their colors. Actually, I should probably do that now. I'm just holding shift while I select all of them. Right, and if you go into the where's the color? Oh, light color. Oh my gosh. The snake would have bit me. So we can update this light color. We're gonna give this nice sort of tealish color here. See, now that's really bright. Maybe we don't want them that big. Maybe we'll go back to 3 and 1.5. Oh, it won't let me set them for all of them? Oof. Okay. Well then, that's annoying. So let's copy this light color here so we don't have to go and start messing with that. I'm sure there's a way to do this, but it's much easier. Just do that really quickly instead of trying to, figure out how to update multiple at one time. Oop. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to copying and pasting. So this is kind of a collection of them. So I'm just gonna put 2 right here. Where I wanted it to. Cool. Feel like I may have put too many, so I'm gonna start to go back on what I wanted to do originally and just do a little at a time. These ones they look a little bigger, so we do 2. But as always, do whatever feels right to you from the amount of time that you want to invest in this to, maybe none of this matters to you, right? And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Don't let somebody else tell you that what you're not walling your stuff. Uh, you're not putting lights. You're not illuminating all of your bioluminescent fungi. Why aren't you doing that? Don't let anybody tell you that because it's your game and it's your players, and you guys can decide what's important to you. Because let me tell you, we DMs have enough to do. Between making our players happy and engaged in our games, right? And not spending an hour on uh, on walling up a single map, right? That they may not even see. You know, what if they don't go down here, and you've spent all this time for nothing? Well, and that's what I like about having walled these is now I have all the other versions of it, right? So here, let's take a look at Mr. Johnny here, and if we unequip his torch, let's unequip his torch. Right now, I can see, this light here is giving me this radius here, and I can see up here, right? But this dark stuff, I can't see where I like. This is all just fog of war, right? So if I go back to my lighting and I say reset fog of war, yes, right. And if I go back into Johnny, right? So now I can't see anything, right? Unless what's lit up by the lights. Which is really cool. I love the way that that Foundry works for this. So this looks good. These edges are a little too sharp. Uh, if I cared more, I'd probably go in and make it, um, you know, a bit dimmer so that we don't have as much bright light. But it's not a big deal. So there we go. That's those are all the walls for a cavern. Um, and with lights, simple lights here, and my players are probably going to be entering at this little thingy up here, so I wanted a light source there, and it just so happens it's on the map. So now I got to start figuring out, what all these extra things are, right? Like what happened to this dude and this other dude down here, right? Um, just in case I had people watching, I'm not going to go into what I'm going to be doing and what's going to be all here or whatever. But I have an underground lake map that these will probably connect to, depending on how they want to do it. Like, oh, I um, go down the river, and if I create a new scene, let's say this is go around see where this guy is. Oh, I haven't actually. I converted this to WebP yet, so let's do that first. I'm only showing the Foundry image, so you guys aren't seeing the conversion, but I have a like a shell menu that I can right click on any image and just right click on it and just convert to WebP. If anybody's curious about how that works, I'll probably go over it at a later date. But okay, so anyway, I put my maps in modules. You don't have to, but I do that uh, to keep track of them easier. And also, if I ever in the future want to build them into a module to share with the creator or whatever, I'll have an easy place to have them all linked. So, like for instance, the Mapso guys, the Mapso mop was the Mapso map was in this Mapso Maps '01, right? And maybe eventually there'll be an '02 or an '03 or whatever. The next one I'm going to do is in neutral party. So neutral party is NP maps, shadow shores. And I'll always, or I always try, at least when I remember, to put the size of the map in the name somewhere so that I can figure out the pixels per square very easily. If I know this and I know the file size, the file resolution, then I can easily just determine what the pixels are. Because that's the hardest part about getting your squares to match is knowing what your square size is. So this is 35 by 35. We're going to use dark. This looks cool. Does it have the? It doesn't have the resolution on this. So we're just going to select this guy. So the scene dimensions will usually select the width and the height automatically, right? So if when I go and I look at the actual file, the file says 3885 by 3885. So I don't want to use that. I want 3885 and I want 3885. Right, that's the amount of pixels that we have. And then if I go into my trusty calculator and I do 3885 divided by, this is 35 because we have 35 squares on each side, right? I get 111. So if I change this to 111, 111, I'll get a perfectly gridded map. Underground sea, lighting, token vision, global illumination turned off. You can always do all this stuff too. So like for instance, we have an underground sea, right? This is an underground thing I can put in here because I use FX Master, right? We have bats that I can put in so that when I start uh, the map, we can have bats kind of in the background and as a weather effect, right? But maybe we can do sound. You can do sounds when you. Those are all playlists that I have, but you can set all that up. So right when you start the map, those start automatically, which is always fun. So let's save that. Let's take a look at our underground sea that we just made up. Cool. So this one's an ocean, kind of an underground ocean map here. This one's also a cave, but it's a little easier to wall, it looks like. But we're going to do the same thing. So here, let's time us. It is 10:32 p.m. And if we start on basic walls, once again, we're going to start off the edge a little bit here so that we can show the actual wall itself. But this one is less specific, right? On this probably doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter. The more you do this, the faster you get. Obviously, I mean that's kind of the same for everything, but and I mean it also really depends on how much you care about being precise with this thing because it like you can see here I'm just going really fast because this one is super simple. It doesn't really have a lot of detail on the maps that I wanted to follow. Right now, the question becomes what are these? Right? Are these platforms? Are these stalag stalagmites? Right? Stalag is coming from the bottom, right? Do they go all the way to the top? Um, since I want my players to have some maneuverability here if they're in the water fighting whatever I need this thing. So I want these to be standable. I don't want these to be walled off. So I'm going to leave those just the way that they are. Um, this guy, however, I am going to block off because I want to give them cover if they want cover from something. And yeah, that's it for there. So let's do invisible walls and let's start covering the stuff that we don't want them to be walking on. We can be a little more precise with this, but it doesn't have to be Because once again, this is just, um, guidelines, And if the grid doesn't tie directly to it anyway, then it's going to let them walk into a few places that maybe doesn't make complete sense, but it's all pretend anyway, so let's not worry about it too much. Save some time after we just spent so long on the on the other map. Well, this is getting really dark in here. It's hard to see, so I have to kind of zoom in. There's a lighter one, a lighter a lighter version of this map. But I kind of like this dark, creepy vibe that this one's given out. So I went with this one instead. Now, this one if uh, is if my players want to go sliding down the underground river. I'm gonna have it dump them into the water here, and and deal with whatever choices they made instead of staying up on the on dry land. But if they don't go down here, then this work is not necessarily wasted, right? I still have this map that's been walled sitting in my back pocket, and then maybe I put a hook in somewhere for some underground adventure, right? And that means I've saved time on that future session because I can just reuse this. I don't have to re-wall it up, right? So there we go. So now we have our interior walls, we have our exterior walls. Um, these lights, I don't think so. I'm going to leave this all complete dark and let them fall into an inky, black void of a cavern after they splash into the water. Cool. So that's it. That took me 6 minutes, right? Oh, hold on. Forgot my invisible walls right here. Right? So it doesn't take very long. Let me drag Johnny 5 back onto here. Who did he lose his torch? He lost his torch because, and it's kind of something that I guess you'll have to learn about Foundry, right? If you update the token after you've dragged it out of the actor list, right? If you update the actor after, it won't save obviously the. I shouldn't say obviously; it might not be obvious, but it won't save the actor as it exists saved. It'll only update the actor that you have the um, on the map, right? So if instead I go and I find my um, DDB items and pull up Johnny 5 from my actor list, right? And then I go ahead and I drag the torch onto him. So now he has this. Oh, now he has two torches. What did I do? Okay, well, now he's got a torch. So now if I were to drag Johnny out, right, he's got his torch. It's not equipped, so let's equip it. Now he's got a torch, right? And if I look around, right, I can see everything. Everything looks pretty good. So in this case, see how you can walk off the map right here, and it kind of does that that thing. You can add extra walls here so that you can prevent them from going off. But I don't normally like to do that. Um, at least in places where I want them to be able to walk off, because if we have to use theater of the mind because we're chasing something, we can do that no problem. Um, but this looks good, and you don't have to be using your arrow keys to move around. It's just fun to pretend like it's a video game. So yeah, this looks good. Okay, so now Johnny's gone. Let's delete Johnny. We have our underground sea map. And to show you what I was talking about earlier, right? So if I were to go to scenes, and if I go into this guy, underground sea, dark, right? Save. And then if we duplicate this guy, duplicate, and we want to say light, light, right? And we go looking around, we should have a light version. This one. Select, save. And if we look at this one, we have a light version, dark version. And if we look at the light, right, and if we go over to our walls, all of our walls are still there. And now obviously this only works with maps that have the same structure, that are just colored different, or they have different icons or scatter terrain. But yeah, now we have two. So let's see. We did our caves. Caves are done. Lights are done. Johnny, let's remove Johnny from here so he doesn't randomly show up. And then I just have some session planning to do around what they can find down here. Like, who are these guys that were tied up and chained up down here? Or maybe there were dogs, right? Or some other beasts that were chained up. Um, is this a loot? Nope, that's a rope. Okay, well, anyway, I'm going to be signing off for the night. It is kind of late here, and I did what I wanted to do, and get these things walled up, so I don't have to do that tomorrow. Um, but I highly recommend, you know, uh, at least walling things up so you can feel it out and see if it's worth it for you. Um, but like I said earlier, it's your games, and it's all up to you. So let's go ahead and see what